Adding the choice of a crispy chicken BLT to Wendy's 4 for $4 is the biggest thing since rappers trying to sing.
I got me a yacht and I sound like a robot.
But do you like the sound of this? Wendy's 4 for $4 now comes with a choice of a junior bacon cheeseburger or a crispy chicken BLT.
From Detroit to Macon, I keep it crisp like bacon.
Both are topped with crispy applewood smoked bacon and come with 4 nuggets, fries, and a Coke for just $4.
Oh, yeah.
At participating Wendy's for a limited time. Meal includes small fries and a drink. Not valid in Alaska and Hawaii.
The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliate stations coast to coast present
Baseball, Beer, and Barbecue.
The 0-2, swing and a miss, strike 3, blew it past it.
Discussing baseball, good drinks, and food.
And you got your honey mustard?
I love mustard.
With Ted Hicks, Todd Vandenberg, and Lee Vowell.
Well, big deal. I am very professional.
Every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. on the Happy Hour Network.
2-2 to Thompson. Here comes the pitch. Fly ball, left center field is well hit. It's got a chance. It's on its way, and it is gone. A walk-off home run for Trace Thompson. And the Dodgers win it.
Deal Syndergaard blast away. Deep into right field. All the way back is Puig at the track at the wall. He did it! Noah Syndergaard, home run! And he tippy-toes around second base on his way to third and coming in. Everybody's doing it now. Everybody wants to be Bartolo.
Driven in the air to deep center. Back goes Peterson at the track, at the wall. It is gone! Noah Syndergaard becomes the second Mets pitcher to hit 2 home runs in a game.
Scherzer rocks, kicks the pitch. Swing and a miss! Swing and a miss! He struck him out! 19 strikeouts for Max Scherzer. He's one off tying the Major League record for strikeouts in a single game. The long pause. Now the kick. Here it comes. Swing and a miss! Swing and a miss! He struck him out with a slider. He has tied the Major League record for strikeouts in a game with 20 strikeouts.
I've looked this one up.
Oh, have you really?
I have. I know the 4 that have done it. That's some serious company. It won't sink in right now, but that it's an amazing accomplishment, especially to be able to get the win tonight. I think this will be the only time I'll ever talk about giving up 2 home runs, and I'll have this big of a smile on my face. Tonight was at the end of the night was a special night because the strikeouts are sexy, and to be able to punch out 20, it's sexy.
And welcome to Baseball, Beer, and Barbecue with Ted, Todd, and Lee. Like us on the Facebook, follow us on the Twitter at Baseball Beer BBQ, and read us on our blog site, baseballbeerbbq.com, and get even more info at thehappyhournetwork.com. We will talk in just a bit with J.A. Sherman of SB Nation's Oklahoma City Thunder site. Welcome to Loud City. Ted, who else do we have to thank?
You can hear us also on NGSC Sports, I-95 Sports Network, Back Sports Pages, RS Sports, XRP Radio, iHeart, iTunes, Arena Sports Network, and Todd, would you like to, give a special thank you to someone?
Here's a quiz, pop quiz. What has 105,000 followers, 21,000 likes, and can fix your computer in a heartbeat, in a moment, in a nanosecond? That would be Computer Repair NC at CAJ Computers NC, 919-653-8496.
And, of course, we talk baseball first before we get into anything else, and Max Scherzer did strike out 20. It's funny because it's funny to me that 20 seems to have happened, 5 times, and that's the number we get stuck on. 20 obviously is incredible. Also, I'll say this as a homer. Even though he had 20 strikeouts, he's still 11 behind Clayton Kershaw for the league lead, which is interesting. But I don't want to be a hater like a Boston fan. I want to say that Max Scherzer, am I the biggest Max Scherzer fan in the world? I like him, I guess. He's a great pitcher. He's never pitched for one of my favorite teams. But 20 is an incredible accomplishment for any pitcher at really any level. If you're pitching Double-A and you strike out 20, that's incredible. He did it on just really a minimal amount of pitches that you can do for 20 as well, because I think he still only had, 116 pitches or something like that. It was crazy to strike out 20. What are you guys' thoughts?
I think I was one of the first ones that said when he didn't sign the deal, the 9-year deal with Detroit, that he was going to be the big loser out of all of this. Turns out I'm the biggest loser because this guy hit pay dirt with the Nats and then turns around, and is just awesome. So what more do we expect from Scherzer?
Well, I can tell you there's a TV guy out there who apparently thinks he can get 30. Tim Kirchin had wrote this in his book, and it popped up on Twitter just a few days ago, that after Clemens got his 20, some TV guy interviewed Clemens and said, oh, you see, the last time out you struck out 30. And he goes, no, it was 20. He goes, well, maybe 30 the next time. It's like, yeah, okay. So maybe that's why we're stuck on 20, because that's in every baseball pitcher's, as opposed to, I don't know, curling pitchers' heads. It's like, well, I can't get 30, so I guess 20. It is weird that no one has gotten that one extra. But, 20 is pretty tasty. I do want to lodge an official complaint, however, that there were no Tigers highlights at the beginning, and that possibly is mired in the fact that they are mired 5 games under 500, and there are no highlights for the Tigers so far this season play. So I hereby retract my official complaint, because what is there to play for them so far? So that's the Tigers, and it's
let me
sad.
Throw this in real fast, and we'll get to the standings in just a second. Is it coincidence that Eric Gregg has been behind the plate in all 5 of those? No, I'm totally joking. Levon Hernandez. So, no, I mean it is funny. I mean, it's the great thing about baseball, because I watched the last bit when I got an alert that, hey, Scherzer has this many strikeouts. I think it was 16 through 7 or whatever. I switched it over. And the great thing about baseball is 2 things, and this is pro-Tiger stuff, Todd. It's interesting to me that he struck out 20. Victor Martinez did not strike out at all and went 3 for 4 against him with hard-line drives, which goes to show you no matter how good your stuff is, if it gets over the plate, Major League Baseball, they would hit a bullet if it was straight and over the plate. And the other thing is, we go to the top of the ninth. It was top of the ninth anyway. But we go to the top of the ninth. Of course, he has 18 strikeouts. He needs 3 for the record. He does get the 2 strikeouts in the ninth. But the first pitch of the ninth inning, when he's trying to get the strikeout record, J.D. Martinez just demolishes the pitch to straightaway center field. And it's like, that doesn't happen. Nothing like that can really compare in other sports, where the guys haven't, as Scherzer said in that little sub-intro that we had, this is probably the one time I smile where I don't, I've given up 2 home runs. It's interesting that in baseball, you can give up 2 bombs. It's like really long touchdowns in football, but you know what? We still had a great game. Well, that doesn't happen in football, but in baseball, the guy crushes a pitch on the first pitch of the ninth inning, and it's like, he still had a great game, even though it was the ninth inning, and they won by a run. That's the great thing about baseball to me. Is just that's why it's my favorite sport, because a guy can still have a great game and still have mistakes, and that's what life is, right? You can have a great life and still make mistakes, and baseball kind of goes hand in hand. A guy who made a mistake and is still paying for it, Jose Reyes, suspended until May 31st. Catch me up, because I may be wrong about this. He forfeits $7.1 million due to the 52-game suspension. Didn't they, before the season, already have how many games he was going to be suspended for, or did something come up recently where they extended the suspension? Do you guys know?
I don't know, but I agree. I thought it was, just as you, I thought this was already agreed on, or maybe it was just assumed. Let's put it that way.
I think it started from last season, and didn't the new rules go into effect like in between
before
seasons?
This season? Yeah, that's right.
So I think that's kind of where they were with that. So to announce it now and to also announce that he'll be back in 3 weeks, kind of weird.
Yeah, it seems weird to me just because it was like, I thought it was done, and then we all got alerts yesterday saying, his suspension is still May 31st. I was thinking, is that breaking news? I thought that's what it was anyway. It seems strange.
Yeah, it's kind of odd.
So anyway, when he comes back, is he going to be playing, or is Trevor Story going to be playing?
Supposedly there are teams actively pursuing his services, and one of those teams is not the Rockies.
It's the Dallas Cowboys, isn't it? The Dallas Cowboys.
Perfect. Personal assistant.
I'm thinking they're going to have to play him to showcase his talents to someone to see, oh, can this guy, can he still play? Can he, is he the whole? Oh, of course, he's not the most electrifying player from 4 years ago when he was with the Mets, but can he still play? Yes, he can still play. Is he still injury prone? I think that's going to stay with him. And I don't know. It's something that's not on our outline, and I just want to go into it really quick. The fact that Chapman came back this past week, throwing 101 miles an hour, and the fans are just cheering, and I just got totally a bad taste in my mouth. And I don't know if that's because he plays for the Yankees, he plays in the Bronx. I'm like, aren't we missing the issue here?
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. I think all three of us agree with that point. I think that's a really good point. And I agree. It's on your point with Reyes, as far as he needs to show he can play. That's an excellent point. And also, I think we are missing the point. It's like, oh, the guy's able to play now. Let's cheer for him. It's like, maybe give it a couple of games and maybe have some mixed response. I don't know. So it's interesting because I joked about the Cowboys, but we are so willing to accept if people are productive players to, oh, this guy can help our team. And we lose sight of the fact that we're all human beings. And this guy did something that no human being should do. I mean, I don't know exactly what happened, but he was suspended. He's obviously, Reyes, of course, is not fighting the suspension. So that, to me, that's kind of admittal that he did what he did. So, I agree, Ted. That's an excellent point. And we probably shouldn't be cheering for the guy. I mean, I'll say, as far as the Dodgers, again, this came up with Chapman. We are not going to trade for this guy. So I was pretty proud of my team for doing that. It's like, we don't want this guy.
Right.
We've got Puig already. We don't want more issues. That may have had something to do with it, but it's still like, I was, and the same thing with my favorite football team, the Seahawks. They do the same thing. It's like, you know what? Greg Hardy would be a good fit on this team. We're not even going to go after that guy. Unless we've done our research and said, oh, this guy actually really didn't do what everybody thinks he did, they're not going to sign him. And I appreciate that about my favorite teams. Not every team's like that. Cowboys, Yankees. And maybe it's because they have such a drive to win. Seriously, they have such a drive to win that it's like, oh, it doesn't matter what the guy is as a human being. He can help us win football games. That'll make us money. I hate that. It makes me want to root against those teams. First of all, I wasn't a Yankees fan. I know Ted and Todd aren't Yankees fans. And Cowboys fans, I don't know how you guys feel, but I've never liked the Cowboys.
No, don't like the Cowboys. Yeah. Let me ask you a quick question, though. If there had been a jail sentence involved and they had served their time, like Michael Vick, would you have a problem with your team signing that person after they had paid their dues to society, so to speak?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I was going to really quickly say I think there still needs to be a suspension by whatever league he plays in.
Oh, yeah. But if there had been a jail sentence, like Vic, would you have accepted Vic as part of your team?
Not me. What about you, Ted?
I think if there's some form of rehabilitation, that it just can't be this person is just going to sit out and sit on their, existing $800 million, and I won't make $7 or so million, because of this situation. And where's the rehabilitation at? Where's any of that? How do we know it's not going to happen again? I mean,
exactly.
Right.
And that's a great point. And just if I could interject real fast, the difference to me between, and obviously I'm politically extremely liberal, I would be willing to accept that guy back into society. But the difference is he's playing a sport where Ted just mentioned he's making a ton of money, and it's a privilege to play that sport. So it's, to me, the difference is, am I willing to accept him playing on my favorite team when there's, in baseball you have 24 guys, 25 guys, and football you have 52 guys on the roster. That's a privilege to play that sport. I'm not accepting you back into society. I'm trying to accept you playing on my favorite team and making a ton of money doing it, and that's the difference to me.
Yeah, and that is a big difference. And like Ted said, there's no evidence. How do we know these guys have rehabilitated themselves? Because this is a completely different all they've been is suspended.
That's it.
So, yeah, it's basically a slap on the wrist, and yeah, $7 million is a hefty slap, but he's got plenty of other millions in Mr. Reyes' case. So, I'm not too fond of rooting for guys. I'm all for second chances, but it's like you said, it's a privilege. They're not entitled to take that spot.
Yeah, because when you go into jail and you have broken a law and you've broken maybe like you've been arrested for selling drugs or whatever instead of killing somebody, and you get a longer sentence for selling drugs than you do for killing someone, that's a problem. And the difference is when you're in jail and you're sitting next to a guy who sold drugs, and when he gets out, he's going to have to find a job at KFC, whereas you're sitting there thinking, I'm going to make $10 million as soon as I get out.
Right.
That's wrong.
There's just, I mean, I don't want to belabor the point because I know we're short for time. However, there goes that word, however. We all get upset. We've all been in relationships. We've all dealt with situations that we're uncomfortable with. But if you're having a disagreement with your spouse, the answer is not to A, put your hands around her neck, or B, go in your garage and fire off a shot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's not an option. And then to turn around, sit on the sideline for 30 games, this is where I think Manfred gets it wrong, or maybe in the next CBA they're going to get it right, to sit on the side for 30 games or 50 games to say, oh, okay, hey, I'm back, and then you're going to ban me for taking PEDs for 80 games. There's a problem. It's no different than what Lee was just saying. I could sell drugs and get 10 years and kill someone and do 6 months of, probation. It's just messed up.
It is. It's totally messed up. So I guess we should move on to something more positive. So the Mets and Dodgers, Ted's favorite team, the Mets, of course, my favorite team, Dodgers, split. It was a really good series, I thought, except for the last game. And no disrespect to Ted, the last game wasn't close. The other other three games were really close. Of course, Noah Syndergaard went deep twice in his game, which is, I mean, who does he think he is, Rick Wise? And then, of course, Kershaw pitched Kershaw. It's funny because Kershaw, so far this season, he had one inning where he gave up 5 earned runs. If you take that inning away, his ERA is 1.03. It's just his strikeouts to walk so far. It sounds like it's like a video game, but his strikeouts to walk so far this season 77-4. He's walked 4 people. He struck out 77. It's crazy the numbers he's putting up, and I know Todd actually texted us yesterday about a number. I think it's skewed a little bit with Koufax and Kershaw's numbers because Koufax wasn't well liked by his manager when he first came up, so he spent several seasons where he wasn't really a starter, and he was trying to figure things out. Kershaw seemed to always have stuff figured out since he came up. It would be interesting to see when you go later in this, as far as Koufax's best 5 years versus Kershaw's best 5 years. But I think even then you'd have to skew the numbers as far as, well, these are the league numbers for what Koufax faced versus Kershaw. But Kershaw's numbers are crazy. But seriously, would I have wished that Syndergaard had hit 2 home runs against a different team? Yeah, but still, as a baseball fan, again, not being a Boston fan, as a baseball fan, that's crazy. I mean, that's entertaining, right? That's great baseball. And the pitcher hits 2 home runs in the game. That's fun.
I love seeing this matchup. I love seeing Mets Dodgers, Mets Cubs, Mets Nats. I love seeing this because, I really don't like to see the Mets play the Cardinals or Pirates because we tend to get our, beat. But we match up really, really well, and it was a really entertaining series. I was happy to get 2 games. When you go somewhere like that, you want to split.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously if you can sweep, but you don't expect that. And if you get a split, you did your job. I mean, you play 500 ball on the road is like, that's what wins championships, and especially when you're doing that against good teams. So, as a Mets fan, I'm sure you're happy with that. And like Lee said, as a baseball fan, Syndergaard jacking 2, that's pretty sweet. Pretty nice series.
I mean, if he does it, if he does it in Game 7 of of getting to the World Series, I'm going to take it a lot harder. But it's the regular season. I mean,
Right.
it's 162 games. It's fun stuff. It's fun when weird stuff happens, and that was weird. It makes me wonder, though, Ted, how much he's going to actually, at some point in the season, hey, we need a pinch hitter, and we've run out of players. Let's put Syndergaard up there.
Yes.
But,
it's not Big Bartolo.
2 weeks ago, we had, the Pirates, and I can't remember who they were playing, but they had to pinch hit 3 different pitchers. Did you guys see this? It went into extra innings. It was like 14 innings. They pinch hit 3 different pitchers between the two teams. Shoot, and I wish I could remember the game. But 2 of the pitchers got base hits, and the other one grounded out. Yeah, it was crazy, and they drove in runs. And it was like, baseball is the greatest sport ever created because of this stuff. And it's wacky. So I guess we should talk about the standings. I know we only have 10 minutes before our fabulous guest comes up, but we always, of course, point out that the Cubs are way ahead of everybody else as far as run differential. We haven't really hit on the Cubs getting swept in a doubleheader by the Padres, which is another thing that makes baseball great because the Padres sweep a team like the Cubs, which is the Cubs are. Yeah, I know exactly. Those two games are the only 2 they've lost in the last 10. I guess we should point that out. But anyway, the Cubs are 26-8. Their run differential is 104 at this point. The next closest I'm looking at right now, actually, it's funny because it's the Red Sox plus 57, but they're not even in first place. They're a game back of the Orioles. The Mets are plus 38, Nationals plus 44. Both of those teams having good seasons so far, and the Dodgers 2 games over 500, basically tied. They're 0.002 percentage points ahead of the Giants, but they're plus 21. The Giants are 0, and everyone else is negative. So the West stinks this year so far. The Pirates and Cardinals both 2 games. They both be tied in the NL West. They're 8 games back in the Central at this point. So let's. We should move on from baseball since we only have, as Ted pointed out, a limited amount of time.
One quick thing. No. Yes. The Twins and the Braves. Twins and the Braves are so bad. Combine their wins, they'd still be 4th in the Twins division. They'd still be dead last in the Braves, combining their wins. That's how bad they suck. Oh my God.
Yeah. And they would be a combined.
Way to go, Joel.
they would be a combined 27 games behind the Cubs. No, that's not right. That's not even right. They'd be a combined 32 games behind the Cubs. So that's crazy. Anyway, NHL playoffs real fast. We've gotten to the conference finals. We have the Lightning and the Penguins. The Lightning took a big hit last night when they lost their goalie, Ben Bishop. Probably a playoff. Carried off in a stretcher. And the Sharks, entertaining team, a team that always underperforms, it seems like, in the playoffs, actually beat the Predators. So, it's hockey is great this time of year, always is. The Sharks and the Blues, St. Louis Blues are playing great right now. I mean, they'd be a good Dallas team. It could be the Blues and the Lightning, which would be an entertaining final. So people should definitely tune in to NHL playoffs at this point. Do we want to do our dummy of the week at this point?
Sure. Oh,
that's great.
I'm
great radio. And there's silence.
You big dummy.
I'll go first. I have an anti-dummy of the week, actually, just because I think it's important. I mean, Marshawn Lynch obviously is retiring. The Seahawks retired him just because it's interesting they retired him when they did. They were going to wait until it seemed like June 2nd when really that physical season starts for the NFL. They went ahead and did it this month. It saves them a little bit of money. They give up some dead money. I don't want to talk about Marshawn Lynch. Ricardo Lockett, actually, because of the injury he sustained against the Cowboys. And I'm not saying the Seahawks are going to be out against the player who did that injury, who hit Lockett. It was a little bit dirty because the Seahawks don't normally play that way. But it was a dirty hit, and if that player for the Cowboys feels like he is an okay human being for doing that, making somebody lose their career, then good for you. Go to hell. But Ricardo Lockett was, he was a guy who the Seahawks should not have thrown the ball to at the end of the Super Bowl against the Patriots. But the guy gave his heart and soul for the Seahawks. He was the gunner on special teams. He was a great special teams player, and they'll miss him immensely due to that. And they missed him at the end of last year, I think, after he got hurt. But Ricardo Lockett is a guy, if you guys have never heard the guy talk, he's an inspiration. He's intelligent. He is a guy who would literally gave his body to his team, and he still says, I root for the Seahawks 100%, and I'm going to go to every game I possibly can because I'm a Seahawk. This guy will probably end up in the Seahawks front office at some point. He's that smart, and he's that committed to the organization. So, Ricardo Lockett, for all Seahawks fans, we'll miss you, and it's tough to see you go.
And my big dummy is a big dummy. It's Curt Schilling yet again. He put out a 1,500-word diatribe about why he supports Mr. Trump. A couple of things I don't agree with him there are two incredibly important things he possesses that neither candidate on the quote Soviet ticket do. He loves this country, so that's one of his qualifications as president. He loves the country, so that's really good to know. He also says, but your liberal agenda has you lying your asses off to a group of people too lazy to do the work on their own, to listen and decide on their own. So how exactly are you changing that by putting out your opinion, Curt Schilling, and asking people to listen to you? Like, Schilling is what a dumbass he is. So, yes, you are the big dummy of the week for me. Thank you, Curt Schilling, Mr. Fired from ESPN, and can't get an interview at Fox.
Exactly. If I could interject real fast, Ted, I thought this last night at 5:30. I was thinking about Curt Schilling and thinking, man, what an ass. And I was thinking, I wonder if he and Randy Johnson ever talked politics, because that conversation would not have gone well.
That's true. I kind of have two people in mind. My initial one this week, it really was going to go for last week. It was going to go to my good friend Phil Jackson. And you say why? Because of all the rings and Jordan and Kobe and Shaq and Pippen. You're in a situation where your team needs a coach. All the good coaches that are left are getting signed. You decide to take a 2-week vacation in Montana. How is that doing the right thing for your team, for your organization that you're being paid $12 million for? So I don't know if that qualifies as it. I'm guess coming from a fan perspective, he gets the big dummy of the week, or maybe he has a master plan and we're all the big dummies. The second one is kind of a little. How do I say? I can't nail it. I'm just going to say social media. Social media, because you have all these people that are sitting behind the keyboards who like to write nasty things. And I've got to tell you, from my perspective, I look at Steph Curry's wife, Ayesha Curry, and I see someone that's supportive of her husband and everything else like that, and it's not, saying anything negative and talking about her Christianity. And these people destroy her on social media. This woman is always trending on social media. And I'm like, get a life. Get a life. So those are my two pseudo dummies for the week.
That's a great point. I mean, people love to hate. They honestly do. I don't know why it is, but if you put out an opinion, I'm not speaking about Christianity, but that family, just from, it's kind of funny because I want the Cavs because I like LeBron to win, but I can't dislike the Warriors. Steph Curry seems like,
right.
What's wrong with Steph Curry? It's like, okay, so Steph Curry makes too many threes. I hate that guy. I mean, and he brings his children up. I mean, he seems like a good guy, and his dad seemed like a good guy. It's Peyton, for anybody disliking Peyton. Archie seemed like a good guy. Peyton and Eli seem like good guys. Why do you hate them so much? It doesn't make any sense. So, anyway, good point, Ted. I want to do this real fast before our guest comes on. Of course, I was jealous because my family went to see Felix in Seattle last week. Not my cat, Felix, but Felix Hernandez. That would have been weird. But Felix Hernandez pitched last week on Sunday. And so I was like, man, I'm stuck here in Tennessee. So I will say that next Sunday, not tomorrow, but next Sunday when you guys get bombarded from tweets from Baseball Beer and Barbecue about the Mariners, it's because Todd and I are actually going to see it won't be Felix. probably, but unless there's a bunch of rainouts. But Todd and I will be seeing the Mariners and Reds next Sunday at 1 p.m. in Cincinnati. So we're looking forward to that.
Nice.
Hey, Ted, as far as Phil Jackson is concerned, hey, when the Trout are running, you got to handle business, man.
True, I guess. I've never fished, but that's true.
Oh my goodness. So Lee, are we at the point where we're going to bring on our guest because he appears to be in the queue? I know you are getting ready to spend time with the family.
That's correct, but I will be listening because
okay.
I've read J.A. Sherman's stuff on Welcome to Loud City. It's and that website itself is great. So I definitely want to hear what he has to say because I'm not a Thunder fan. In fact, I think I'm supposed to dislike the Thunder because I lived in Seattle for obvious reasons. But I mean, the Thunder seem like a fun team, and it'd be fun to see them win the finals. So I'm definitely going to keep listening to you guys and Sherman while he's talking Thunder. So enjoy the show.
All right. And Todd, I'm about to we now welcome J.A. Sherman to the Baseball Beer and BBQ. Sherman is the editor of SB Nation's Oklahoma City Thunder site. Welcome to Loud City. Sherman, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, guys. It's great to be here. Good morning to you both.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Before we even get into the greatness of the Thunder, Durant, Westbrook, whether Durant is staying, what is he going to do, the Spurs, I want to get into really quick the Eastern Conference and get your thoughts, Sherman, on what do you think about how the Cleveland Cavaliers are playing right now?
I think in a lot of ways the Cavaliers season has paralleled the Thunder in the sense that there were a lot of questions going into the playoffs. They were a bit disjointed offensively. They were really struggling on offense for a long period of time, not really figuring out how to maximize the use of Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving. And their defense was just sort of hit or miss. But then once the playoffs started, they just kind of hit into overdrive and made a boatload of three-pointers. I think they've hit 3 games where they had at least 23 pointers in the game while shooting about 50% from that range. And so just really remarkable turnaround performance by them. And so it's interesting to see how LeBron has been able to galvanize that team and turn them into a playoff monster once again.
Gotcha. So there's 2 other teams in the Eastern Conference that are battling it out. It was a pretty good game last night between the Heat and the Raptors. But do they really hold any threat, either team, of beating the Cavaliers and getting to the finals?
Well, to look at it from the Raptors standpoint, I honestly thought they did going into the last month of the season. It looked like DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry had really put things together. They were a good, focused defensive team. They had won, I believe, the most regular season wins in franchise history. And no other than Coach Greg Popovich, I believe, told Coach Casey after one of their matchups, hey, I think you guys can make it to the finals. And so clearly they were on the upswing. But ever since they got into the playoffs, it's been very curious how they've struggled against what I would consider lesser talent, lesser opponents. I thought they should have done a lot better in the first round, and now they're facing a Game 7 against a hobbled Miami Heat team. And I don't really know if they've kind of figured out their playoff mojo. And so I kind of expect the Heat to pull off the upset there, even though they are suffering from some injuries. But because of those injuries, I don't think they stand a chance at all against the Cavaliers. I thought a properly functioning Raptors team might have had a shot to do it, but I don't think either of those teams can win more than one game right now with the way the Cavaliers are playing.
Hey, I do. Oh, I'm sorry. Todd, I just have one more bonus question for Sherman. Do you think what are you seeing with what you're seeing with Dwayne Wade? Do you think the tank is empty? I mean, what's your thoughts on his play during this series?
Surprising, to be honest with you, and much to his credit. because I honestly thought he was done at the end of the Heat's LeBron James era. I watched those 2014 playoffs, and he just completely looked done as far as being a high-performance playoff competitor. And so to watch him transform his game in these latter stages of his career, and to be able to hit game-winning shots and being an impact player in fourth quarters, I think that's really remarkable. And so I give a ton of credit to him because I thought he was done 2 years ago. And I think he's a good backup, or excuse me, not backup, but a good backcourt mate alongside Dragic, who is a better three-point shooter and knows how to give good spacing to Wade. So it seems like that mix has worked out. But unfortunately, I think their injuries to their team is going to really hold them back, and if they make it to the next round.
And based on last night's game, excuse me, if I'm the Cavs, I'm not too worried. I don't think I've seen as many air balls and lost handles since watching like a middle school game. I mean, wow, that fourth quarter was atrocious. Anyway, on to the Thunder. How big was the series win over the Spurs?
Well, I think it surprised a lot of people, me included, to see not only that they won. I think they definitely went into that series as an underdog. They won, I believe, 12 fewer games in the regular season. The Spurs had one of the best point margin differentials in NBA history due to the combination of their offensive ability and their league-leading defense. And so not only were they underdogs, underdogs going into that series, but I thought, especially after Game 1, that all of their issues that they were dealing with over the course of the regular season were coming to full manifest, and that it was just not going to be pretty, and that the Thunder would probably get knocked out at 4-1, maybe 4-2, simply because all the problems seemed to be coming together at the same time. So I think the biggest surprise is not only that the Thunder won, but that they did it in the way that they did it, which is primarily on defense. And that's remarkable because for, I would say, 3/4 of the regular season, their defense was terrible. They didn't have good ball rotation on defense. They weren't stopping the drive on the perimeter. Their bigs were frequently getting lost, and they were giving up lots and lots of points to really subpar teams. The Brooklyn Nets in particular, I remember they just torched them, and it looked like the Thunder had no idea what to do with this lottery team. And then the fear of having to deal with the fast-paced motion offense of the Spurs, especially after Game 1, it said, okay, well, here it goes. This is how it's going to end for the season. And to see them morph from that kind of team into a defensive juggernaut that really figured out how to stop all of the motion and the ISO play by the Spurs was completely surprising. And I think everybody at Loud City and Thunder Nation is really surprised and very happy to see how the team has come together.
And do you think that defense is the key to them solving their fourth quarter problems? I mean, they've had, you know better than anybody, they've had difficulties all during the regular season, but since the playoffs, they've really turned that around.
Yeah, I think the defensive issues were the primary culprit. For a long time, the critics have always said the Thunder's offense is too simplistic in fourth quarters, and certainly so. It's they tend to become very star laden in the ends of fourth quarters, a lot of ISO play, and that's valid. But it's also not that different from everybody else in the league. If you're looking at Golden State, guess what? Steph Curry is going to be taking most of the clutch shots. If you go to Cleveland, LeBron's going to be taking most of the clutch shots. That's the way it is. But I think what people were missing was that their defense was so poor during the regular season, they were not able to maintain leads in the fourth quarter, combined not just with the ISO play, but they were a very high turnover team in the fourth quarters, and they were giving up lots of possessions unnecessarily with sloppy offensive play, just turning the ball over. And that compounded with the poor shooting led to them losing a lot of leads. And so what we've seen against the Spurs is much tighter defense, and with the exception probably of the sort of the throwaway fourth quarter of Game 6, much better protection of the ball. and not turning the ball over. And simply by eliminating those problems, they just put themselves in a much stronger position where even if they weren't shooting great, either in ISO or offensive motion play, they were able to overcome those scoring deficiencies by simply keeping the other team from producing points as well. And I think that's how they've been able to maintain those leads against the Mavericks and against the Spurs.
And speaking of the Spurs, Danny Thompson, he hosts NBA Full Court Press on our network. He said the Spurs have two of the best 5 players on the planet. And, of course, they had a terrific regular season, especially at home. Yet the Thunder sent them packing. So instead of asking how the Thunder defend the Golden State Warriors, how are the Warriors going to defend the Thunder?
I think one of the biggest things that I'm looking forward to is that the Warriors are obviously a historically great team in the regular season. They won the championship last year. But I think they have taken a step backwards on the defensive end. They certainly can crank it up from time to time. But in terms of their fast-switching, cohesive defensive unit that we saw a year ago, I don't see it quite as tightly. And that's not to say that they can't get back to that level, but they just haven't had to rely on it as consistently. And that may be an opportunity for the Thunder to exploit because what we saw in the regular season in their 3 matchups, even though the Thunder lost all 3, they really didn't have that much trouble scoring against the Warriors. And especially when the Warriors go to their small lineup, I think the Thunder are one of the few teams that can regularly exploit that tiny ball that they call the death ball lineup, where they put Draymond Green in the middle. I think the Thunder are one of the few teams that can exploit that simply because Westbrook and Durant can score so easily against a porous defense, and they can keep a player like Steven Adams or Serge Ibaka on the court and not lose too much in terms of their defensive backline's mobility. So I think the Thunder's biggest advantage going into this series is that the Warriors' defense isn't quite as on point, and if they go to their death ball lineup, they may be giving up too much on the other end of the court. So I think that's going to be a key matchup for me.
Hey, Sherman, got a question on Billy Donovan's impact this season. What's your thoughts about him?
Sure. I think coming into this regular season, he was put in an almost unfair position where he was given less than a season, less than a year, to come in, remake the team so that they were able to overcome a lot of their ongoing deficiencies in terms of lack of focus, lack of discipline on both ends of the court, and too much reliance on their stars, especially in the fourth quarter. And to also do that in the midst of the Warriors and the Spurs and the Cavaliers contending for a championship. Oh, and don't forget the fact that Durant may leave after this year if things don't go well. That's an almost unfair position to put on any coach, let alone a rookie coach who only had college experience. So I think I and a lot of the people at Loud City thought that the regular season didn't really show a lot in terms of growth in those areas of deficiency. And I would honestly have probably graded him at about maybe a C+ for the season. It's not that it was bad. He was solid, but he didn't really address a lot of the issues that the Thunder had been struggling with over the years. But that said, once we got into the playoffs, I think his understanding of the game has really started to transform, where he shortened the lineup. He eliminated a lot of the things that he had been tinkering with during the regular season, and we've seen a much more cohesive unit, better offense, much tighter defense. And so I would have to grade him, into the A- to A+ range over the course of the playoffs. Certainly, Game 1 versus the Spurs, that was failure on all parts, but his ability to recover that team and then blow out the Spurs by Game 6, that's an A+ performance, and he did it in a really deep understanding way of where his advantages on his team lay and being able to maximize them over the course of a game.
Sherman, the question that everyone is asking is, the Thunder could definitely pull off the upset of beating the Warriors. How much confidence, as a Thunder fan or super fan, do you have going into this series? And how do the Thunder actually beat the Warriors?
Well, I think everybody looks at the Warriors and they see Steph Curry, who has completely transformed the way you even think about play on offense. He changes the defense. He breaks defenses by himself. He changes the entire dynamic of it through his shooting and his gravity and his passing and all those things. Everybody knows this, so that's a given. But the way I look at the Warriors is not by thinking about how do you stop Steph Curry, but how do you stop what is really the focal point of what makes their entire offense work, and that's Draymond Green. If you figure out a way to stop Draymond Green, then you figure out a way to slow that offense down just enough to give yourselves a chance. And the Thunder, like I said, are one of the few teams that have enough offensive firepower to make up the difference if you can slow down other areas. And so if you start with how are we going to deal with Draymond Green, and then I would say secondarily, how are you going to shut down? Well, not shut down. That's unfair. How are you going to slow down Klay Thompson so he doesn't get off on those big runs alongside Curry? Whenever Curry seems to struggle, Klay Thompson steps up. So if you can address those two key players and slow them down on a incremental basis, I think the Thunder put themselves in a position where their offense can make up the difference and have a shot to win each game. Now, easier said than done, but I do like the fact that the Thunder have the personnel that can do some things against Draymond Green. So I would look to see if Serge Ibaka might end up guarding Green a lot of the time, especially when Green is at center. And then in fourth quarters, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Thunder put Kevin Durant on Draymond Green because of his length and his ability to recover quickly, to cover both the perimeter and in the paint. As long as you're not putting him down low, banging against Draymond Green too much, I think Durant can hold his own. But I think if they can blanket Draymond, keep him from getting those open three-point looks, and also from exploiting the middle pick and roll that they love to use between he and Steph Curry, and keep him from getting those lob passes to guys like Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut, then you start to diminish the efficiency of the Warriors. So that's the first thing I would look towards. And the second thing is I would just say put Andre Robertson on Klay Thompson for 20 to 25 minutes a game and just let him lock him up. He's not going to shut him down, obviously, completely, but we saw some amazing defensive play by the young Thunder guard who notoriously can't shoot very well, but he's a really, really good defensive player. He made Kawhi Leonard work for everything that he got, and I would look for the same sort of thing against Klay Thompson.
So basically, you're saying we can look forward to seeing Steph Curry go off for 40 or 50 a game, but the Thunder will still win the series. So pretty cool.
That's exactly how I look at it. Yeah.
Which, well, you can't stop the top player. You've got to stop everybody else, like you say. So beyond the series, and of course winning the NBA Finals, how much concern is there that Kevin Durant's going to leave after the season, or if they do win the championship, do you think he'll stay?
I think that it's not necessarily contingent on whether or not they win, but it's about the team and whether the culture is solid enough for them to be able to maintain their identity. Because if you ask the question of where does Durant have the best shot to win a championship, because we know that's what he's concerned about, I think the first lesson is he's got to be in a solid team environment, which the Thunder have, and he's got to be playing alongside other players who are good enough to be able to get it done. So I think as long as those types of things are still in place, I think he's going to stick around.
We've seen, and that brings up this. Obviously, Oklahoma City is one of the quote small market teams, and Kansas City, the Royals winning the World Series. Do you see this as a continuing development that we're going to keep on seeing? Well, there's no such thing as a small market anymore, since so much of it is television contracts. Are we going to see more small cities win championships because now they can finally afford to keep the talent?
I think so, and I think that's a good observation. And certainly with the NBA's success over the last couple of years, and the growth of their salary cap that's going to expand over the next couple of years, you're going to see teams be able to get it done in a lot more effective manner. But it still comes down to how well do you manage your budget, how well can you find and uncover assets that are undervalued, which you frequently find in the draft and things like that. And I think you will see teams like that. And I think the NBA has struggled with the fact that only a few teams have won championships over the past few years. But now we see the Warriors, who were historically a struggling team, they've taken the lead. The Thunder have been right there, and then the Cavaliers, I think, are good squads to be leading the way. It's not going to be the Lakers and the Knicks for a while. So I like the way it's going, and I like the fact that because the game is so global now and money is so dynamically moving across different markets that you can have young superstars who are comfortable staying where they are. And another team that I've seen that has sort of embraced that is the Milwaukee Bucks. They've got a lot of young talent there, and they're excited to be there, even though it's a smaller market. And so I think if teams can keep building themselves like that, I think we're going to see continued growth by the NBA.
And truer words never spoken. It's going to be a while before we see anything from the Lakers or the Knicks, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Again, this is J.A. Sherman has been with us. J.A. Sherman, where can our listeners find you on the interwebs?
I would love it if your listeners stop by welcometoLoudCity.com. We've got an amazing community, global community. We have fans from all over the world because obviously the Thunder have global interest between Steven Adams and Enes Kanter and guys like that. So stop by and introduce yourselves and join the conversation. We'd love to have you.
Well, you were terrific. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And that was our good friend J.A. Sherman of SB Nation's Oklahoma City Thunder site. Welcome to Loud City. Todd, that was one of our better interviews that I've participated in, because usually the interviews are great when I'm listening in and hearing you and Lee interview someone, but I was just happy to be able to participate in this one.
No, he was terrific, and you know, it's the guests make the show because God knows we don't. So yeah, he was amazingly good, and I love Welcome to Loud City. I mean, what a perfect name for the website. It's like that's fantastic. So that alone is worth the click.
That is, and folks, this is not clickbait. We're telling you, Welcome to Loud City is a great site. Want to get into some, I guess, housekeeping and a few things we're going to clean up, and we're in this show strong. Todd, I ask you, are you excited about tonight? Chris Cyborg.
Absolutely.
UFC 198.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'll be headed to the fights tonight. Looking forward to seeing how Cyborg. People come from other organizations and they get to the UFC, and the UFC is a different level of talent. Now, that being said, I don't think Cyborg's going to have a whole lot of trouble tonight, but you never know, because it is the seventh-ranked people in the UFC are a lot different than the seventh-ranked people in Invicta, in Strikeforce, et cetera, et cetera. So it will be interesting. But yeah, it's a really good card. Really glad to see Cyborg come in, see how that plays out. I mean, hopefully she wins, because if she loses, that sucks for sports fans. But if she should win, and we'll see how that plays out with what we've got as a triumvirate of Miesha Tate, the current champ, and the former champ, Holly Holm, and the person who was the champ seemingly forever, of course, Ronda Rousey. So there's some terrific matchups that are there to come up and ahead. And the title fight, Fabricio Verdum at his first defense against Stipe Miocic, who I thought for like 3 years was from Croatia, and is like, no, actually he's from, I believe, Cleveland, but he's from somewhere in Ohio. And so I'm pulling for Stipe to win. That would be great. Just as nothing against Verdum, but I would like to see, and I have a feeling that Verdum is going to be one of these one and done, and he'll be back, and we'll see. And of course, having said that, he'll probably choke out Miocic in like the first 2 minutes. But it's a really good card tonight. Really good card. And again, I'm really glad to see Cyborg finally in the organization, because man, there's some awesome matchups that she adds to that. So it'll be a good night at UFC.
That's true. And
I almost forgot. I'm sorry. I almost forgot.
Go ahead.
Rumors that the UFC is up for sale, which Dana White is very adamantly denying, because he would be out of a job. I don't think he would be broke, though, because the Fertitta brothers bought the UFC in 2001 for $2 million. And the numbers that are floating around, and you know their numbers, between 3.5 and 4 billion. So that's a pretty nice investment. Now, you do have to take into account that several years ago that Dana White said that the UFC was going to be bigger than the NFL. Well, when the whole organization sells for what a team sells for, you're not bigger than the NFL. But that's a little bit of the usual UFC exaggeration and hyperbole. But man, it has grown for the numbers to be thrown around. So if it sells, it's certainly going to be in the billions. So that's a nice little investment by the Fertitta brothers, and man, they sure have. There are things that need to change about the organization. I think they need to make fighter pay more equitable. They need to be a little less draconian, I think, in some of their, like the fact that someone can fight and win fights and still get released because they weren't entertaining enough. To me, if you're winning the fights, okay, I understand it should be entertaining. It's for entertainment. But I don't see cutting a guy because his fights aren't entertaining. I mean, if he's winning, he's winning. It's like it's up to his opponents to beat the guy. So I think that kind of sucks to cut someone. Move him down on the card, if anything else. It's like, so don't put him on a pay-per-view. Great. And that'll force him to be more entertaining. Don't cut him because, he's not throwing enough elbows. It's like, come on, that sucks. But overall, pretty awesome organization, just as far as from a fan perspective. So hopefully it gets sold to someone who continues its growth and keeps up the path and treats the fighters well.
That's true. I mean, it's kind of like I kind of feel like the day that the McMahons sell the WWE, yes, it's going to be a cash grab, and it's going to be kind of like the same day the Steinbrenners sell the Yankees, and you're just wondering, okay, will this current tradition continue? Will the entertainment part of it continue, or will it just go in a tank? That's when you think about.
Of course, there's one difference with the UFC and the WWE. The Fertitta brothers and Dana White don't get in the ring routinely and claim championships. So thank God for that, right?
Good answer.
Boy, this would be awesome, though. I want to see Dana White and Joe Rogan fight on the last card while the Fertitta brothers own it. Just an exhibition. That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun.
That would be fun.
Joe would annihilate him. Joe would kill him.
Oh, my goodness. I think we got through mainly everything. Did we talk about politics? I mean, it just won't be the same without Lee being on and not talking politics. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I'll speak for Lee. I apologize, he's listening, but I'll speak for Lee. Death to tyrants. Elect all the people as the co-presidents of the country, and then we will have the true society we deserve. Actually, we're about to get the society we deserve, depending on what happens in November. So that kind of sucks, but I mean, it's not as entertaining now because things are settling out. And I say things are settling out as Bernie Sanders continues to win primaries, but unfortunately there are very few winner-take-alls, and he still has the superdelegate hurdle to defeat. But if he keeps on winning primaries, it's going to be an interesting convention. It's going to be a very interesting convention, just not from the standpoint of necessarily him taking the nomination. I mean, it's possible, highly unlikely, but it's possible, as to how much influence he will have at that convention and the Democratic plank and influence he'll have over running mate. So it's not over in the Democratic Party yet. The Republican ticket, it's kind of funny to see who's endorsing and who isn't endorsing Mr. Trump. So he doesn't need Kurt Schilling's endorsement, because Kurt Schilling is, that's just preaching to the choir. He doesn't need more of those people. They're already supporting him. He needs to obviously reach out to moderates. And it's interesting how he's changed so many things, and everybody knew he would. And to be honest, everybody does once the primary season is over, but he's really changing on a lot of things. Oh, it was just a suggestion now that we ban the immigration of Muslims. It was never, I was like, all these things are just going to be suggestions, and he was misquoted when he clearly wasn't. So it'll be very interesting to see how much he flip-flops. I am looking forward to the debates, regardless of whether it's going to be Mrs. Clinton or Mr. Sanders against Mr. Trump. And again, it's not likely to be Sanders, but it ain't over.
It ain't over till it's over.
That's right.
It ain't over till it's over. So I guess stay tuned for that. For those comments right there, Todd, I just want to say because you nailed it dead on. Next week, we have our guest is going to be Brian Coleman, editor of the Long Island Tennis Magazine and New York Tennis Magazine, to preview the French Open. Pretty exciting. Other than that, I think we want to thank all of our radio partners that play us near and far. Thank you guys once again, and want to thank Lee, and most importantly, Todd, I want to thank you.
And Ted, we thank you as well.
And with that, I think this puppy is a wrap, and we're going to play the outro. Later, guys.
The fans hoping to catch a little bit of the old-time religion right here, baby. With Junior stepping up to the plate. Here comes the stretch. And the pitch to Junior on the way. Swing and a fly ball hit to deep right center field. That baby is going to be fly away. The old-time religion lives. Junior does it. A 2-run home.
Adding the choice of a crispy chicken BLT to Wendy's 4 for $4 is the biggest thing since rappers trying to sing.
I got me a yacht and I sound like a robot.
But do you like the sound of this? Wendy's 4 for $4 now comes with a choice of a Junior Bacon Cheeseburger or a crispy chicken BLT.
From Detroit to Macon, I keep it crisp like bacon.
Both are topped with crispy Applewood smoked bacon and come with 4 nuggets, fries, and a Coke for just $4.
Oh, yeah.
At participating Wendy's for a limited time. Meal includes small fries and a drink. Not valid in Alaska and Hawaii.